I didn't make a video yesterday because I genuinely thought it would be the end for Ange Postecoglou, as in Daniel Levy would pull the trigger and fire him on Monday morning. I felt it was inevitable after what I saw as many of the players downing tools in that Everton game, but he hasn't. I'm surprised, but it shows how devoid of options Daniel Levy is right now. And that's mainly because he's tried every single thing when in these situations before, except sticking with the manager. It's uncharted territory. And now, in what is always the inevitable next step when players are trying to get rid of their manager, reputable journalists have come out this morning and said that some of the Spurs players feel like the training is too tough and rigorous at Tottenham at the moment. I'll be discussing that, as well as rumours that Spurs are looking at a striker and a centre-back, as well as other more wide-ranging transfer talk in today's edition of Premier League Transfer News. Guys, thank you so much for watching and for listening. If you're on YouTube, please do give this video a like. Please do subscribe if you're not already a subscriber to my channel. I bring you daily Premier League transfer news during this January window and the summer, always starting, of course, with my team, Tottenham Hotspur. And you can also listen to this on the podcast platform, Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Please do go over there and give me a follow or subscribe. It really helps me. Just type in the Spurred On podcast and you'll find me there. But let's get started. And I'll start with the transfer rumours when it comes to Spurs, because obviously we need players through the door right now, it's fair to say. But the fact that we're in 15th in the league is not going to help when it comes to trying to persuade exciting players that Tottenham is the place to be. But some reports last week that Liam Delap is someone who could be on Tottenham's list and they could be going for a huge bid for him. Chelsea also interested in Delap, of course, who's ripping it up at Ipswich, ex-Manchester City Academy graduate. We've seen with Cole Palmer how successful those ex-Man City Academy graduates can be when they join big clubs. I say Chelsea, of course, sniffing around because there isn't a young player on the market at all that Chelsea aren't going in for. Apparently, Tottenham also could enter the conversation for Victor Gyökeres, and, of course, Jonathan David is still someone that Spurs are interested in. They've gone big on a pre-contract agreement with Jonathan David, trying to get him in the summer for free. But I think now that the shit's hitting the fan, frankly, at Spurs, with the amount of players that Ange has to pick from, senior players in each game, maybe they're trying to bring that transfer forward. Would you like Liam Delap at Tottenham Hotspur? How much would you be willing for Spurs to spend to get him through the door? I think we'd be looking at least £60 million, probably a bit more. Is he another player that we need to just pull the trigger on, get him through the door, whatever it costs? At the moment, I'd say yes. The talk of us going in for Victor Gyökeres, I think, is probably a little unlikely, personally. Another report came out this morning from Sammy Mockbell in the Mail that because Arsenal are now looking for forward options because of Jesus' injury, Saka's injury, and Martinelli's lack of form, that apparently is hampering Tottenham in the market because Arsenal are now coming to swim in the same waters, looking at players that Tottenham have been interested in. So I think Gyökeres, who is definitely on Arsenal's list, is probably out of our league now, as upsetting as that is to say. Some more reports that Tottenham have a strong interest in Udinese defender Thomas Christiansen. This is one that won't go away. Juventus have also held talks over a possible move for the stopper. As I said, all the reputable journalists saying that Tottenham are trying to get in a centre-back and a forward in the remaining, 9-10 days of this transfer window, leaving it late as ever. As is always talked about, Daniel Levy apparently loves the last 10 days and 2 weeks of the transfer window. It's when he really feels like he comes to the fore and he can get deals done, which for me is frankly just pathetic. Should be just doing whatever it takes to just get players through the door when the manager needs them. But of course, that's not the case. As I've mentioned in the title of this video, Christian Romero now, as again, according to some reputable journalists, has stated that he is open to leaving the club in the summer and he's set to be a target for Spanish clubs. Obviously, Real Madrid have had a long-standing interest in Romero. Frankly, this frustrates me no end because for me, just get back out on the pitch, mate. Honestly, just get on the pitch and show us that some of the concentration lapses you had at the beginning of the season are gone. You've had a good rest, and now it's time for you to be the leader that you claim to be, and the vice captain job that you've been given by the manager at the beginning of last season. You need to now pull this club up by its bootstraps and show in the second half of the season, when you get back from injury, which should be in about a week's time, according to most reports, that you are going to lead us from the back and take us to the promised land of a better second half of the season and some silverware. You get us some silverware, Christian Romero, you can leave with my blessing, and we'll get the money and we'll reinvest it, and it will be a lot of money because, you know, he's one of the top centre-backs in the world when he's at his best. There are very few ball-playing centre-backs as good as Christian Romero, but for now, he needs to just be concentrating on Tottenham Hotspur and taking us forward. A lot of reports over the weekend that Milan Skriniar was still interested in Tottenham Hotspur, that he would decide between 4 clubs, Fenerbahce, Aston Villa, Spurs and Galatasaray, but it looks very much now like he's going to Galatasaray. Spurs did show a real desire to sign him, apparently. Paris Saint-Germain looking for a loan deal with a buy option that would be easily triggered. But also a lot of the Spurs fan base saying he is not an Ange ball centre-back. He's not a ball player. And we've seen with Radu Dragusin, even though Dragusin is young and I think can learn to get better on the ball, we've seen how having a player at centre-half who isn't comfortable on the ball can really allow opposition teams to press them and to just basically single-mindedly pinpoint that player to put Tottenham under pressure. And a lot of people in the Spurs fan base suggesting that the same would have happened with Skriniar. Let me know what you think. Would you have liked us to get Skriniar through the door? I think it's fair to say a lot of Spurs fans back in the day under Jose and maybe even Conte wanted Skriniar then and felt like Tottenham had dropped the ball by not getting Skriniar through the door there, but maybe it's not the right time now. Some news coming from Old Trafford that is relevant to Spurs. United have opened formal talks with Lecce over getting Patrick Dorgu, their left back, into Manchester United. Looks like Lecce want around 40 million euros, and it's relevant to Spurs because he's been on Tottenham's list for a long time, and Tottenham do need and have been looking for another left back who can also ideally play centre back as well. But it looks like Manchester United have stolen a march on Spurs, and that is not going to do anything to excite the Tottenham fan base, who are currently in absolute bits over the fact that Spurs haven't made an outfield signing this January. And to see that Manchester United have got Dorgu ahead of them, or look like they're going to get Dorgu ahead of them, is not going to go down well. Let me know in the comments how you feel about that. Some talk in Spain that Spurs have joined West Ham in being interested in Barcelona and Spanish forward Ansu Fati, 22 years old. This is one that we nearly did a year or so ago, isn't it? And didn't happen. He's suffered with injuries. I'm not sure about that. At the time, I know Spurs fans were excited about him, but that seems like a little bit of a risky one. I personally think that when Tottenham are looking at signings, we need to bring not only players who can play really good football and play in the Ange way when Ange is able to play his way with, ideally by having first team players on the pitch and in the squad, but we also need more physicality. If you watch against the Everton team the other day at set pieces and really through the midfield, we were brushed off the ball far too easily over and over again. And we need a mixture of really good ball players who can also physically mix it in the Premier League, and I'm not sure that's going to be Ansu Fati. Ange was asked after at his press conference at the back end of last week about transfers and about how he felt about Randal Kolo Muani joining Juventus. He said we were interested and are looking at a number of players, but we never got to the point where we thought Kolo Muani was coming to us. Also, Spurs have recalled Dane Scarlett, but that is not to keep him in the squad. That's in order to try and find a new loan move for him. So just after that kind of Tottenham transfer news, I want to just after that Everton game kind of try and give some more considered thoughts on where I'm at with Ange Postecoglou right now. I did say in my post-match reaction straight after the game that I thought Ange should be fired and that he would be fired. It's Tuesday now. I'm recording this about 9 a.m. He hasn't been, and reports came out yesterday that Spurs are still backing him. They are still trying to give him the chance to turn this round. Look, my problem is that it's not just been during this period with the injuries. It's been most of last season as well. But as I've said numerous times, that was also caused by all the injuries. But why are these injuries happening? Anyway, I'll get into that. First of all, I want to ask you guys, and let me know in the comments. Let's have a debate in the comments about this. Just because Daniel Levy has always sacked managers, and always before the point that we're in now, we're in 15th in the Premier League. We are the 6th worst team in the Premier League. Just let that sink in. But just because Levy has always sacked managers before this point before, and a lot of people are angry about that. A lot of people still angry that he sacked Jose Mourinho before the cup final, or that Nuno, some people now angry that Nuno wasn't given a long enough chance, and a lot of people suggesting that Antonio Conte should have stayed longer. I mean, I personally think Antonio Conte wanted out. It's not as simple as he was sacked. I think he blew up in that press conference after the Southampton game when we were in 4th in the league, by the way. Would have gone up to 3rd. Absolutely ridiculous. But Conte had a terrible year, hadn't he, in terms of he lost a couple of his best friends. He had he had to have his gallbladder removed. Just had a nightmare situation, and I think he wanted out. But obviously, Levy didn't try hard to keep him. So a lot of fans are angry about that. But in terms of us, just because we've sacked managers before, how far in terms of keeping Ange, because we've done that before, how far do we let this slide? I mean, we've got Hoffenheim away on Thursday night and Leicester at home at the weekend. Both of those teams are in absolute disarray, as Everton were. I mean, do we stick with Ange Postecoglou? Those of you who are Ange fans and want Ange to stay, and I'm an Ange fan, by the way, I love Ange and I want it to work for him. But those of you who think Ange should stick around and not be fired, if we lose to Hoffenheim and Leicester, or if we don't get a win in those games, do we still stick with Ange Postecoglou? Let me know in the comments. It's an honest question. It's not incendiary. I just want to know how you feel. How far do we let it slide? For me, as I've mentioned, it's the fact that the injuries happen, and I'm having a few kind of conversations with people on X, Twitter, who are railing against me about this. But for me, it cannot be coincidence that all these injuries are happening, and over again, mostly the same muscular injuries as well. So that is my big issue with Ange Postecoglou, that his training is too rigorous and that the style of football is not allowing us to have enough recovery time either in training or on the pitch. That's my problem, because it's nothing to do with Ange himself or his tactics, really. It's that he will never get his best team out on the pitch. And if he can't get his best team out on the pitch like he had for the first 10 games of last season, we will never win enough games to be as good as we need to be. So that's my problem. But those of you who are big Ange fans and say he needs the time, how far can we let it slip? How close to a relegation battle properly are you willing to get? Everton have a game in hand on us. They're 4 points behind us. They have a game in hand on us. So, in a few games' time, they could be above us and we'd be 16th. I mean, it's just, for me, it's gone too far at this stage. Like I said in the opening, players have now privately complained about the demands of Postecoglou's training and the schedule. The club's injury list does not ease some players' concerns that their output needs reducing. That's Sammy Merkbell in the Mail. This is a classic, an absolute classic. We heard it with Conte, we heard it with Nuno, we heard it with Jose. We even heard it at the back end of the Pochettino era, despite all of the success we had then, despite how brilliant we were then. The players start leaking it to their agents. The agents start leaking it to the press. It's a way of trying to get the manager out, as was, frankly, that first half performance against Everton at the weekend. They weren't playing for him. And I said it in my in the watch-along at the time. I said it in the post-match reaction. James Maddison would be the first name on the list. And I was absolutely shocked to see him pushed out for the interviews after the game. But I think that might be because Ange Postecoglou saw that Maddison wasn't playing for him in the first half and probably said either to Maddison himself or was saying, by messaging, by not taking him off, he's saying, you can have this shocker in front of everybody live on TV, and then I'm going to push you out to do the interview after the game as well, because Maddison was invisible. He didn't do anything. And the only time he started putting in a bit of effort was after we got that first goal. He's like, oh, this is interesting. Could get involved in something here, and started trying to pick the ball up off his back four. But other than that, in the game, he was absolutely disinterested, in my opinion. And it would not surprise me if some of these reports coming out about the training is from Maddison and his agent. Because Maddison, I think, has fallen out with Ange Postecoglou, is angry that he's not the first name on the team sheet, that he's not the big man in the club, the person that everything goes through on the pitch, and he's trying to get the manager out in the hope of something better coming to replace it. I mentioned the injuries before, but I'm going to ask a direct question to you guys. Again, you guys particularly who want Ange to have longer and who think that he can turn this around. And I hope he does. I really do. I really hope he does. I just want you to know. But I've got to ask these questions because, like I've said to some people in the comments, this show and these videos, these are a mirror to the fan base. A lot of people think it's gone too far with Ange right now. So I'm holding up a mirror and I'm asking you guys who want Ange to have longer. If Ange Postecoglou has nothing to do with these regular muscle injuries and all of the injuries we've sustained, not just in this season, but also for over half of last season, if you genuinely believe that the decisions he makes in terms of the rigorousness of the training and the style of play and the lack of recovery time for players' muscles, if you don't think that is why we're getting so many injuries, if it's not that, why are we getting those injuries? Answer me that. And why has he admitted in the past, as have the fans of the other clubs he's managed, that his players do get more of these muscle injuries at those clubs? For me, and this is just my opinion, it's subjective, and that's what, YouTube and podcasts are all about. For me, the intensity of the Premier League is more and higher than all the other leagues he has managed in before. He is doing the training in exactly the same way he's done previously. And because of the intensity and because all of the opposition teams that we play against have a lot more stamina and are just stronger physically, the training methods that he's used at previous clubs where he's had initial muscle injuries and then the players got used to it, the players in the Premier League at Tottenham cannot recover in time to get used to it, to that level of rigorousness. And some people have come to me and said, well, Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola, they play, Jurgen Klopp played gegenpressing and he didn't get the injuries. Yeah, I agree. There's a way of doing it where you give players enough recovery time. And your rigorousness in training is maybe a little lower level, but still enough to get you to play that high-intensity pressing football on the pitch. But with Ange, he hasn't got the compromise. He hasn't got the middle ground right. And listen, I'm not claiming I know what's happening on the training ground. All I'm saying is, for me, it cannot be coincidence. It cannot be coincidence that we are suffering with this many injuries and so many of the injuries that are exactly the same, not just this season, but for the last season and a half or more. The next thing I want to say is, to those of you guys who want Ange to stick around, who don't think that letting go of Ange and bringing someone else in is right, answer me this. Do you genuinely think, under Ange Postecoglou, we can go to Anfield and get a result in the second leg of that League Cup game without Dominic Solanke, without someone who can hold it up? Because I don't think we can. Now, there were some reports coming out yesterday that Spurs are hopeful that Solanke will be fit for that second leg, and by God, I hope he is. But that is a big ask and probably a big risk to get him back playing in what is just, 2 weeks' time. But what I'm saying is, do you think that Ange Postecoglou has the right system without a number 9, or even with a number 9 right now, to go to Anfield under all the pressure of a night game at Anfield with Liverpool's best team out, who are desperately trying to overturn a 1-0 deficit, and after all the kind of lack of fight that this team have shown under Ange Postecoglou whenever adversity hits, do you think we can go there with the style and the system that we're currently playing and get through to that Carabao Cup final? Because I don't right now. I really don't, especially not without Dom Solanke. And therefore, if not, and I'm just saying this is my opinion, but if not, would it not be better to go there with a manager who has a system that is slightly defensively sounder, by which I don't mean, going full pragmatic, conservative defensive like Nuno or Jose or Conte, but what I mean is a defensive system where we stop crosses at source, a defensive system where we mark our back post. And I'm talking about specifically not a system we can bring in where we're not conceding the same goal over and over and over again, which we have done all season and for half of last season. For me, that is like the maddest thing about all of this, is that we are not learning, and Ange is not trying to tweak the system so that we stop conceding the same goal over and over again. Teams know all they have to do is get a big old cross in and then get it to the far post, and just like that Everton goal, get it headed across the box or headed in the goal, like so many goals, or finished at the back post. But in this time in the Everton game, headed across the box, and then Archie Gray has to put it in his own net because he's under pressure from a striker. We're hanging our hats on the cups this season. We are getting what we wished for. A lot of the Spurs fan base have said for years, what I want is a season where we don't care about the league. Who cares about top 4? We just want to go far in the cup competitions. Well, you've got what you wish for, because we are literally 15th in the league. And a lot of questions have been asked over the last few years. Would you take finishing 17th in the Premier League and winning a cup? Well, it's almost as if we're trying to see whether we would be happy with that, because we're 15th in the league. We might be 16th before long. And yeah, we've gone far in the League Cup. We're still in the Europa League. It's likely we'll get through to at least the playoff round in the Europa League. The FA Cup probably go out to Aston Villa unless things improve very quickly. But we're hanging our hats on the cups. But at the moment, I feel with Ange at the moment, and yes, some of it's to do with the injuries, but also to do with the fact that he is unwilling to change things in a way that stop us from conceding the same goals again and again and again. I think it's most likely that we will be knocked out of all of the cup competitions in the next month or 6 weeks. I really do. I really do. Obviously, people are complaining that we haven't spent money on players this January yet, and I get that. I do. Outfield players. I think Kinski has been a good signing. I think he's going to be brilliant for Spurs in the long term. But what I'd say about us not having spent money in January yet is that basically nobody has. Only Manchester City really have, and it's taken them, nearly 3 weeks into January to get their signings in, and they offer unlimited wages. Unlimited wages. So I'm just kind of giving a little bit of realism here, and I know people don't always want to hear realism, but the game is at a strange place these days, like it's never been before. And 2025 is unlike any time before for the Premier League, where clubs, the lower clubs, or clubs seen as lower but who are actually well above Spurs, clubs like Brighton, Bournemouth, etc., they don't have to sell their players anymore. They get enough money in, and they've got owners who are rich enough where they don't have to sell their players to clubs like us anymore. So when Tottenham are interested in players like, say, a Semenyo, or a Liam Delap from Ipswich or whatever, the clubs that own those players put massive valuations on them. And Spurs also don't have much room for more foreign players in their squad at the moment. So it's a little bit of a problem, isn't it? And also Tottenham's players at the moment, frankly, are not doing very well. And our academy players aren't doing very well. So we're not able to bring money in that will allow us to kind of go over and above the valuations of players to get players in quickly. That is, I think, is a problem, and we have to be patient about it. I'm sorry for the realism. Here's my kind of final thought, and I am aware that this is a bumper edition of this, but like I said, I didn't do a video yesterday. I wanted to give time for some considered thoughts. But let me know in the comments what you think about all of these things, and I hope you're appreciating why I feel so passionately about it, because this is a situation Tottenham have not been in, for me, since the horror days of supporting Spurs before, what I'd say always before Martin Jol. It was Martin Jol who really started turning things around for Spurs. My final thought, kind of on Ange and where we're at the moment, is who's next? Who is next? And I mean either this season, if Ange doesn't make it past this season, or if we get knocked out of the cup competitions, because let's face it, as and when he gets knocked out of the cup competitions, he will be fired. So he's got to win something or he's fired. So boom or bust. But who's next? So either this season, in the summer, if it's in the summer, or beyond. Who is the next manager of Tottenham Hotspur? I genuinely have no idea. I'll say it again. I think what is happening at Manchester United right now is keeping Ange Postecoglou in a job, because it shows that changing the coach in the middle of the season doesn't always work. Even if you bring in the most exciting coach in Europe, Ruben Amorim. Everybody wanted him. He was on Man City's list. Tottenham wanted him before. West Ham had wanted him before. If the club is rotten from the top down, and let's face it, with Spurs it is, by which I mean, the fans hate the owners of the club, and the owners of the club won't invest more money to up our wages, and therefore we're not able to get players in who are going to take us to the next level. If the club is rotten from the top down, it's hard to turn things around, and I do not know who the next manager is. Who do you want the next manager to be at Tottenham Hotspur? And also tell me, if Ange is going to lose his job, let's say it's when we lose against Hoffenheim or Leicester, or if we lose in the Cups, who will then come in? Will we be able to get anyone out from a club who we actually want right now? I don't think we will. I'm going to say this, I miss Mauricio Pochettino. I personally think those are the fan base who used to complain about Pochettino not being a success because he didn't win trophies. Madness. You had no idea how lucky you were. I'll caveat it, as I always do with Pochettino, that he was sniffing around other jobs. I think he wanted the Man United job. He was sniffing around that, but I think he was sniffing around it because he knew that Daniel Levy wasn't willing to invest in the way that the painful rebuild, his words, Pochettino's words, he wasn't willing to invest to get that done, and so Pochettino felt like he couldn't take it further. But since he left Spurs, and I'm going to just ignore the Chelsea debacle, because Pochettino wanted the Spurs job. He wanted the Spurs job. He was pining for the Spurs job. He was putting posts on his Instagram every day of him going out playing golf with ex-Spurs legends. But Levy didn't want to go back. He didn't want to go backwards. And we should have done, I think, probably. But I think, I've said it before, but I'll say it again. If I'm Daniel Levy now, I'm going to Pochettino and I'm playing on his heartstrings. I'm saying, we'll give you a shit ton of money to come back. And we know you're moral and you don't want to leave a contract that you've signed with the American national team, but come back and you can be the manager for the next 5 years and take this on. This is just my opinion, and I know a lot of you, and feel free to get in the comments and say I'm going mad, but he is a great manager, and he's a great manager of young players. I don't think this is something that can or will happen, but I miss him. I miss him. He was a brilliant manager for Tottenham Hotspur. Okay, moving on to other news. As I said, Spurs, apparently all the reports coming out yesterday, remain intent. These are the words that journalists have been using. Remain intent on trying to help Postecoglou rather than removing him from his position at the moment. They need to move far more quickly with that help, though, don't they? Let's face it, because the injury situation is not clearing. Other reports yesterday from Matt Law, former Borussia Dortmund head coach Edin Terzic, out of work and likely to be one of the names discussed if Spurs were forced to make a change. There's currently no definite signal that's about to happen. So those journalists coming out kind of saying the same things, although this morning's report was the first one I saw that said that some of the players are complaining about the training sessions. There were some quotes from Big Ange that came out back end of last week that I think are relevant to discuss now, even after the Everton game. He was asked about transfers. He said the club's working as hard as it can, and that's all you can ask for. January is not an easy month, but I do know a lot of work is being done behind the scenes to try and get some reinforcements in. He also was asked about any frustration at the lack of signings. He said, sometimes when you're in our situation, other clubs realise that and try and make the most of it. That's why I was delighted to get Kinski in fairly early. It's helped for sure, but it's not for the want of trying, so I accept that. I'm not disappointed or frustrated. I'm actually pleased at how hard the club is working. This, for me, is another reason why Ange Postecoglou has not been sacked. He is the perfect manager for Daniel Levy. He toes the party line. He doesn't complain like Jose did, like Conte did, and he says, at least in public, that he understands the situation. Just as he said in public before that he'd rather 2 players at £50 million than one £100 million player. He is the dream manager for Daniel Levy. So that's another reason why he is still in his job, despite the fact that I, again, have to say Tottenham are in 15th place in the league. Postecoglou was asked about squad depth. He said it depends on and is constantly a moving picture with these kind of things. If everyone comes back and stays back and fit, unlikely. There's no evidence to suggest that will happen. When they come back from injury, they'll probably get injured again. But anyway, we go on. He says, we have players who've missed a fair bit of football, guys like Wilson Odobert, who's hardly played. Is he going to come back and hit the ground running? You just don't know with these things. Romero, Van der Ven, Destiny have all had significant disruptions. Bentancur has been in and out. We've lost Timo for a bit now. Good, frankly. Good. Play Mikey more. There are all these kind of moving parts, Ange says, where you just don't know. Where we sit right now, I think we all need some reinforcements. It's about trying to make that happen if we can in this window. That's my biggest problem with Ange. I say it again. It's not going to be that when the players get back fit, it's all better again, because they're going to get injured again, or someone else will get injured again, just like Brennan Johnson just got injured and Bissouma got injured, so he was out from the weekend. Because of the training and the style of play, we cannot get players fit. They are too fatigued. They're in the red zone. Ange Postecoglou was asked on being the manager of Spurs side in such poor form. He said, the responsibility weighs heavily on me. I feel it. I feel the pain of it. I feel the disappointment of it. But I'm a fighter, and this is where I want to be. I want to find a way to get us out of this so we can reap the rewards of the tough battles we've had. Ange, I hope you're right. I hope you're right, and I hope you succeed. I hope it works for you. But at the moment, we all fear Hoffenheim away. We all fear Leicester. These two clubs, just like so many clubs this season, Everton, Ipswich, Crystal Palace, who haven't had a win for ages, play Tottenham, get their win. I know the injuries are a nightmare, but it's just a terrible situation. Postecoglou was asked about being in the cup competitions and being confident that he can succeed. He said, it's not about confidence, but I have great belief we can make a big impact for sure. Notwithstanding that, we still need to be better and more consistent in the league, irrespective of the cup competitions. One can feed into the other for sure. I mean, just talk about all the eggs in one basket. All the eggs in one basket. Dearie me. He was asked, Postecoglou, does he need more from his senior players? He said, I agree that our young players are certainly standing up. Do we need more from the experienced players? I think whenever you're in a situation like ours, my experience tells me you need the ones who've maybe been through the tougher times to lead you through it. There's no doubt about it. So that's what we're looking at. Now, we don't have a lot in that bracket, to be fair. If you look at the other night, especially, This is the Arsenal game he's talking about. The ones who do, whether that's Sonny or Madders or Ben, who's back now, and Dom Solanke to a certain extent. Although it's his first year at the club, maybe Basuma, we don't have a great deal of experience to lean on in these times. But certainly for us to get through it, it's going to need some leadership. Well, no leadership was shown on the pitch in the Everton game. No leadership was shown. Just such a depressing time. And I think our ex-player, Mido, probably sums it up perfectly. He said this: I don't think Ange or any coach is the problem. I think, honestly, the people on top, they've been running the club from a financial point of view, not from a football point of view. And I feel sorry for every Spurs fan. Listen, as you'll know if you regularly watch videos of mine or listen to podcasts of mine, I've never been stringently ENIC out or Levy out, or ENIC in or Levy in. I think it's a little bit of a be careful what you wish for. I think there are better chairmen out there, probably, but there are worse ones as well. And there are certainly chairmen out there who run their clubs in a financial point of view, or from a financial point of view, as Mido said, but in a worse way, like Mike Ashley was at Newcastle, and like the Glazers at Manchester United, who literally siphon funds out of the club for their own gain. ENIC do not invest their own money in the club. That has always been the way. They've tried to run it sustainably, and they have run it sustainably. But they don't siphon money out for their own personal gain in terms of hundreds of millions of pounds like the Glazers have. Levy takes a big dividend, sure, and he pays himself a big salary, and others around him do, and that's, it's not good optics. And ENIC and Levy they're appalling on optics, but there are worse chairmen out there. But I am getting to the stage now where I'm like, I'd love to take a risk on a different chairman who was willing to do what. God, I can't believe I'm almost saying them in a positive light, but you've got to give it to Todd Bowley and Clearlake at Chelsea, in that they have just invested, billions of pounds. I think they've cheated the system and they've done it absolutely illegally and fraudulently, but they are investing money in Chelsea's future, and somehow they're just pulling the wool over the Premier League's eyes. I don't want Spurs to have an ownership group who are illegal. Or I don't really want it to be like an oil baron or an oligarch or a state that's using it for sport washing. But I am at the stage where actually it is like, if you can't beat them, join them. But the problem we've got is that the valuation of Tottenham now is so high because of the stadium and because we're in London. They're looking at probably £3.5-4 billion. I just do not see who's going to pay that. And that's why I think ENIC are looking for a minority investment rather than a full sale at the moment. Anyway, guys, let me know how you feel about everything I've talked about there. Just before I get on to some more Premier League wide-ranging transfer news, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. And thank you for your support. Please do give this video a like if you haven't already. Let's get it seen by as many people as possible. And press subscribe. If you're not a subscriber to my channel, I bring you daily Premier League transfer news, always starting with Spurs because they're my team, and also in January and in the summer it's transfer news, and then Tottenham news the rest of the time. So please do press that subscription button. I'm trying to get to 15,000 subscribers, getting really close now, so let's keep this community growing. Okay, guys, over to Old Trafford, who, as I said, it's all gone to shit at Man United in a big way. And if Tottenham weren't having such a terrible season, it would be incredibly funny. But United are looking at moves for Wolves' Ryan Alt-Nouri, as well as potentially Jamie Gittins at the moment. Although Chelsea are interested in Gittins. They will go for Alt-Nouri if their Dutch defender Tyrell Malacia moves to Juventus, as has been reported. Napoli are massively in for Alejandro Garnacho. They're looking to reach an agreement on a £50 million deal. He's a player that Tottenham should be in for. Can we try and persuade him that the future is at Tottenham? He's an exciting young forward, but looks like he's going to go to Napoli to play under Antonio Conte. United also interested in Joe Bellingham from Sunderland. Borussia Dortmund have joined AC Milan in wanting to sign Marcus Rashford. Real Betis have got their hands on Antony. It'll be interesting to see if his form can improve. He's been so appalling since Manchester United paid £80 million for him. Over to Man City. Kyle Walker is going to Milan on loan. That is happening. City are now looking at ex-Aston Villa and now Juve player Douglas Luiz as an option for January window. They've already got a couple of players in Man City are looking to increase their squad. Juventus have asked for €75 million from City for Andrea Cambiasso. And also Jack Grealish is being tracked by Inter Milan and Borussia Dortmund, with his future at City looking increasingly uncertain. Is he a player that Spurs should be in for? Probably. We could do with just more players who can keep the ball in the final third, frankly. Over to Chelsea, they're considering a move for Dusan Vlahovic from Juventus, and they are in talks about selling their Portugal defender Renato Veiga to Juventus Chelsea. So that is a deal that could get done. Chelsea have also made inquiries about Garnacho and Jamie Gittins, as well as Manchester United. So lots of clubs swimming in the same transfer waters this January. AC Milan could move for Chelsea's 25-year-old Portuguese forward João Felix as an alternative to Marcus Rashford, who it looks like they're not going to get now. João Felix, wherever he goes, just doesn't seem to live up to the expectations, does he? Chelsea also in talks with Dortmund to sign Karim Adeyemi this summer, and Juventus interested in Ben Chilwell as well. So the club's really trying to do business this January and spending a lot. Juventus, Chelsea, Manchester City and Manchester United. Chelsea apparently, who now have Trevor Chalobah back from his loan at Crystal Palace, and he played in their victory against Wolves last night. They want £40 million from any club who are willing to sign him. Aston Villa have rejected a £57 million bid from West Ham for John Duran. And apparently Aston Villa are angry about that bid coming just before their Champions League game. Well, unlucky. That's just how it works. Juventus are interested in buying as well Lloyd Kelly from Newcastle for about £6 million apparently. No, actually, I think it's like £11 million. He only just arrived 7 months ago from Bournemouth on a free transfer. Everton are considering a free transfer move for Willian. That's news that came out back end of last week. Wolves are in talks to sign Portuguese midfielder Manu from Vitória. Arsenal over to South London now, and finally with Arsenal, they're weighing up a £70 million move for Leipzig striker Benjamin Sesko. That is a deal they look to do in the summer as well. Barcelona are also interested in the Slovenian forward, and this would be great, wouldn't it? Real Madrid keen to sign the 23-year-old Arsenal centre-back William Saliba in the summer. Yes, Real Madrid, I think you should go for Saliba instead of Christian Romero. That's what you should do. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this kind of bumper edition of Daily Premier League Transfer News. I needed to ask loads of questions about Ange, so let me know how you feel in the comments below. Do give this video a like. Also, please do press subscribe. As I said, I'm trying to get to 15,000 subscribers and getting closer and closer. Really appreciate all your support, and other support you can give me. Become a member. It would really help, either a YouTube member or a Patreon member. Only £1 a month really helps me make this daily content for you. All the details of how are in the description box below. Guys, try and enjoy your Tuesday if you can. Have a good day. Goodbye.